on Lynn Cherop Megich. The Speaker, the other officer that I want to call out, and I want to borrow the ears of the majority leader, because this is important. This is very important. I want to call out the head of public service, and for a reason. On May 24th, a day before this crisis started in this country, the head of public service wrote to the Public Service Commission to begin the process of recruiting CASs, the Cabinet Administrative Secretaries. Who does that at such a time as this? Who does that? Mr. Speaker, we want to call on the head of public service to receive that letter like yesterday. You cannot be advising or seeking advice from the PSC on how to recruit cabinet administrative secretaries at a time that we are saying we cannot afford the cost of running these offices. The Speaker, the next person of interest that should appear before this Senate and speak to the country is the head of the public service. The Speaker, I want to challenge the President, respectively again. The cost of living is what it is. Too much talk is not helping anyone. We have said everything that could be said. It is time for action. And there are things that I know the President can do and bring down the temperatures in this country. One of the things that he can do, even today, is to reduce the size of his cabinet. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution, Article 152, gives the President the minimum number of cabinet secretaries and the maximum number. He can appoint between 14 cabinet secretaries and 22 cabinet secretaries. As we speak now, we have 21 cabinet secretaries. The Speaker, I want to call on the President, as a demonstration that he has listened and understood what the people are saying. Reduce the size of your cabinet from 21 to 14, the minimum. Merge departments. Reduce the number of principal secretaries from 51 to around 30, or even 14, to match the number of cabinet secretaries that we have. The Speaker, and there's comparable jurisdiction to this argument. When you look at the United States of America, where we go to borrow money all the time, and we go for benchmarking all the time, Senator Alwale, the size of the cabinet in the US is 15, with a population of more than 340 million people. 14 cabinet secretaries in the US. When you look at China, with a population of more than 1.5 billion people, the members of the State Council, whose equivalent is the cabinet secretaries, are 26. What are we doing with 21 cabinet secretaries with a population of less than 60 million people and an economy that cannot support that kind of expenditure? The Speaker, let us reduce that number. The Speaker, on the matter of security, it is time for us all, and especially those who are in authority, to walk the talk. As I said, too much talk is not helping anyone. I'm hearing of the usual threats that those who break the law will face the full force of the law. That as we carry out these investigations, no stone will be left unturned. Mr. Speaker, those things stopped making sense a long time ago. It is time for action. This sitting of the Senate is a call to action, both from us and those others who are in positions of responsibility. Mr. President, if you love your country and you have listened to what the demonstrators are saying, let aid roll in the security apparatus and departments of this country. Speaker, I asked some young people from my office to tell me when, lastly, the Inspector General of Police, Kwenye, spoke to this nation. And they went to the archives and they have told me that the last time that the IG spoke to Kenyans was on 17th of April, 2024. And what was he saying? He was saying, and I quote, that as the Inspector General of Police, I would like to assure you, he is speaking to a contingent of police officers being dispatched to Haiti. He's saying, I want to assure you that they, the officers, have the capability, capacity, and training to succeed in this mission, and that they will deliver when they get to Haiti. That's the last thing that Kenyans heard from the IG. When the country is burning, the IG is silent. The Speaker, one of the requirements for demonstrations is that demonstrators would notify the police, they would be guided on where to go and how to organize their demonstrations, be escorted through streets or wherever they are going, presentation of petitions. The IG is absent. Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, the words that the President used on the former IG, Mr. Mutyambai, on the level of incompetence and being clueless, perhaps those words are better suited used on IG Kwenye. Perhaps actually the President spoke too early when he addressed Mutyambai. Talking about incompetence and lack of capacity, the Inspector General of Police is the embodiment of lack of capacity to lead the Kenya Police Service. Mr. Kwenye must leave office immediately for this country to enjoy peace and tranquility. The Speaker, lastly,
na mtazamaji, ni kikao cha maseneta ambacho kinaendelea bungeni hivi sasa, lakini tukiondokea hayo tuelekee sehemu tofauti ambapo viongozi wa Azimio, mtazamaji, wakiongozwa na Kalonzo Musyoka, basi wanatoa kauli yao moja kwa moja. Tusikilize.
In the last 2 weeks, Gen Z has inspired the majority of disenfranchised and disillusioned Kenyans to exercise their constitutional rights to assemble, to demonstrate, to picket, and to petition. They continue to do so in a manner that has captured the attention not just of Kenya, but the region, Africa, and indeed the whole world. In the typical fashion of a tyrant, the Ruto regime attempted to silence their voices by intimidation, arrests, abductions, and hijackings. This did not work, and indeed it shall never work. According to the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, local and international media, the police executed a shoot-to-kill order that extinguished 41 young Kenyan promising lives, with over 300 Kenyans admitted to hospitals with gunshot wounds. We also note that the youth raised their demands from hashtag reject the finance bill to hashtag Ruto must go. Ruto and his henchmen sponsored goons infiltrated with the sole intention of destabilizing the continued peaceful protests. These disgraceful, criminal and illegal activities violate the right to peaceful protest as provided for under Article 37 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Despite these perpetuated horrors, the young people have continued to march our streets, determined to drive and realize meaningful change for themselves, their families, and their country. We have observed that the intention of yesterday's well-organized, coordinated, and state-sponsored chaos was to undermine and denigrate the Gen Z-inspired nationwide non-violent protests. Looting was intentional. The destruction was planned. The torching of public and private property worth billions of shillings was carried out in collaboration with the already corrupted security forces in the full glare of the media, and indeed the international media as well as onlookers. We also note that despite a court injunction prohibiting the use of live ammunition, tear gas, and crude weapons to disperse protests, police continue to deploy arbitrary gunfire, resulting in innocent deaths and injuries. To restore peace in the country, we demand that the police act swiftly in identifying and apprehending all the violent and criminal elements that infiltrated the peaceful protests. There are many questions that Gen Z, Azimio, and the world have, the two most significant of which are: why is Ruto, through his henchmen and thugs, hiring goons to destabilize constitutionally protected protests, causing chaos and mayhem? Is the goal to declare a state of emergency and suspend the Constitution? Given Ruto's blatant mishandling of the economy through punitive tax policies, increased domestic and foreign borrowing, runaway corruption, ethnic and tribal public sector hiring, and astounding capacity to splurge on domestic and foreign travel and other luxuries, increased unemployment and high cost of living, the growing dissatisfaction the Kenyan public was to be expected. Generation Z is tired and Kenyans are tired. The slew of lies has left the hustlers, quote unquote, distraught and traumatized. Kenyans have had enough of Ruto and are demanding that hashtag Ruto must go today, not tomorrow. To expedite the people's wishes, Azimio demands that the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Amendment Bill 2024 be immediately signed into law. We are aware that this bill has been sitting on Ruto's desk for days now, and the Kenya Kwanza dictatorship is reluctant to sign it into law. As a coalition, we call out to Ruto and demand that he assent to this essential bill that allows citizens to hold their representatives in the legislature accountable. By the way, the Constitution says if you want to withdraw your member of parliament, you have to wait for 2 years. The 2 years are coming to an end on the 9th of August. So really, this is timely. We have officially, through our constituent parties mechanisms, put on notice all Azimio legislators who went against the wishes of their people. we are supporting the call for their recall. We continue to offer our condolences to the families of all those who lost their loved ones from the police bullets. We also wish those admitted to different hospitals quick recovery. We also note with concern the intention to divert the public attention from the real issues by purporting to adjust the salaries of senior state officers, members of parliament, members of county assemblies, and governors upwards at a time when the country's economy is not doing well. We urge our members to reject the salary increments. We call on all Kenyans to unite and defend the values of justice, democracy, and peace for which this country has been known. As a coalition, we are steadfast in our commitment to advancing the interests of every Kenyan citizen. Finally, it is time for Ruto to take responsibility for all his actions. He has blood on his hands, and he should go to allow for a smooth transition of power. Thank you, and may God continue to bless our country, Kenya. I can only very quickly...
Members of Parliament.
Sorry, we have two members of Parliament, the leaders actually, the leadership of Parliament, both Honorable Wandai and Honorable Mbui, the leader and the deputy respectively. Although they call them minority in that Parliament, we never accepted the reality that they are not the majority and the deputy majority respectively. Mheshimiwa Wandai.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. I just want to clarify to the nation, really, that first and foremost, it is a matter of fact that the Gen Z and indeed the public have been calling for the reduction in salaries paid to senior state officers and public officers, including members of parliament. And therefore, it would be insensitive for us as members of parliament to accept any purported salary increment amidst the rage that is out there. As a matter of fact, again, I want you to go on record that I, together with my deputy, Honorable Mbui, have rejected in totality the purported salary increment by the SRC.
I think we need to give you
and we are asking the National Treasury to reallocate that money towards employing the JSS teachers, towards employing health workers, and in fact towards helping the youth who are out there struggling to get gainful employment. I'll be, of course, together with my deputy, calling upon my colleague members to follow suit. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
There's something my colleagues may want to add, but you may have noticed that over the weekend, while in Kitui, I did call for the possibility of a snap election, and actually gave comparison between Kenya and what is happening elsewhere in the region. When the French President Macron realized that his party lost majority during the recent European elections, he called for a snap election. The French are on to that. Tomorrow, the 4th, Prime Minister of the UK, Mr. Sunak, also called for elections, really literally snap elections, on July the 4th, all over the UK. This is a moment for Kenya. But that's why we are calling for very quick enactment of the IBC Amendment Bill 2024. So at least there may be a possibility, assuming the youth in this country will allow that opportunity to happen. So that's one of the things that we made very clear over the weekend. And again, we looked at what happened in Parliament, the desecration of Parliament. There's blood right outside the entrance to Parliament. And we suspect, I've never gotten this confirmation, the young man who sat on the Speaker's chair was brought down. Blood right in the chamber. How, in all honesty, will members of Parliament want to sit in a place like that? These are some of the questions that we must ask as leaders. But, Mheshimiwa Eugene,
if there are any questions,
if there are questions, I can deal with them.
Na mtazamaji, basi hiyo ndio kauli ya viongozi wa Azimio wakiongozwa na Kalonzo Musyoka. Na basi kufikia hapo tunachukua tena mapumziko mafupi. Tukirejea wakati tunaingia katika awamu ya pili ya mchipuko wa K24, naomba uendelee kuwa nasi.